Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. I thought that in today's studio vlog I would show you how I made my frog candle because I thought he was really cute and of course I wanted to show how I made him. So I started the process on the pottery wheel, which basically involves centering the clay and then pushing it down and flattening it with the edge of your hand before finding the centre of the clay and poking your finger in and slightly pulling out the wool. And once you've started that, you can pull up the wool and basically create the shape that you want, which is what I'm doing here. Once I've done creating the shape that I want and I've got the pot the way I like it, I basically take the sponge and I take off any excess water around the clay before I stop the pottery wheel, put a bit of water on the side and then wire it off, just because I find it easier to have a bit of water to help wire the pot off. Once the clay is dry enough, I can start trimming it. So I use the circular trimming tool, as you can see here. It's one of my favourites to use and I just find it the most handy. And I basically start by taking the bigger chunks of trimming off, and then once I've taken the bigger bits off, I can go over and neaten it and just take off smaller bits to get a rounder edge that I like at the bottom of my pots. And I keep any of the excess trim later so that I can sculpt with it. Obviously some of my pots have more detail in it and use more clay, so I will grab some more clay for my bag, but for this one the excess trim was just enough to make the sculpture that I wanted. After I had trimmed the pot to the shape that I like, I basically go over with a wet sponge and just smooth out any of the areas that need smoothing out, possibly because I've scratched it a bit too far and I just need to smooth out the clay a bit. Now we can move on to the sculpting part. So I start by trying to find where I want the face to be on the pot. I always have a particular place I like it to be, so I move the wheel around and I test where I want it to be. And like I said earlier, I use any of the excess trim to basically sculpt what I want. So I had a big clump and I split it into two, and I'm basically starting by getting a rough shape of what I would like, and then I will place it on the pot and see where I would like to position it. So if it's too high or the eyes are too far apart, I can really adjust it at this time before I stick it on later. Once I have found a place for where I like the eyes to be positioned, I get my scorching tool and I just scratch the pot so that I know exactly where I want it. This sort of activates the clay to act as a better way to stick together, so I will be doing that later to the eyes as well. But before I get onto that, I like to just smooth it out, so I'll scratch the back where I need to scratch it and then I'll smooth out the clay on any parts that are showing. And I especially like to think about the back of the clay when I'm attaching it. If there's any back showing, it's harder to smooth it out once it's been attached. So I really try and smooth it out as much as I can to attach it to the pot so it still looks nice. After I have scratched the pot and the eyeballs, this sounds really weird, but I do add a bit of water to basically act like a glue so that it sticks on better. And once they are both on, I basically here, as you can see, smoothing out the bottom. So I'm pulling the clay down at the bottom so that it blends into the pot. And I will do this slightly at the sides as well. But it's just so that the eyeballs don't look like they're just stuck on. They are actually smoothed into the pot and look like a part of the face. Once I have added the eyeballs, I will basically go over and smooth out the area. So I'll add a bit of water to my finger and just smooth out the clay so it doesn't look as clumpy. And That's normally once I have the attached part the way I like it and everything's really together. And any areas I can't get to, I will go over with my smoothing tool, which you would have seen in previous videos. Once sculpted and trimmed, I can basically wait for the clay to dry, and then my pot is ready to paint. Hooray! So for the frog, of course, they have that white little mouth or their chin really. So I had to add that into this lovely little frog. And I start with white just because it's the lighter colour. So if I tend to go over what I normally make as the outline, which is what I'm doing here, if it doesn't look quite white, I can go over with the green because the green will be darker than the white and correct it. I also have a few layers of white because, as you can tell, it's terracotta clay, so I like to make sure that you can see the white and there's no clay peeking out. To paint the other side of the white, I've just turned the pot upside down just to try and make it symmetrical, just because it makes it a bit more easy. So it's not like the camera's flipped, it's just upside down. I remember debating whether I want the white to carry on up into its eyes so that it had a white background for the eyeballs, but I'm glad I actually went with just making the belly white, to be honest, and it does look more frog-like like this, so I'm glad that I did that. But basically, I'm filling in the outline of the white, and then once it's dry and I leave it to dry a bit, I will go over it again. And now onto the green. So once I've gone over the white twice, I basically go over with the darker colour, which is obviously the green in this scenario. And the rest of it is really going to be green. So unfortunately, I did the outline around the white without you because I just wanted to concentrate and try and get it done. But you can see me paint the rest of the green anyway. So obviously getting all around the eyeballs and just making sure that I'm getting at the back of it. Any creases I'm covering with paint. I'm really just trying to make it look as frog-like as I can without any remnants of terracotta, apart from obviously at the bottom of the pot. I did later switch to a bigger brush because this one was just taking a long time, but obviously I went over the green twice once it had dried fully, so I'm just going over the back of it and covering it all. And of course I've got to do the inside as well, because once you've burnt that lovely candle, if you wanted to use it as a pot, you still got the frog features inside, obviously keeping it nice and green. Now it's just about adding the details like the eyes. So I normally dot the back of my paintbrush in some black and then dot it on, and then I go over with a thinner paintbrush and just neaten it out and make it more circular. And of course, as this is a little frog, I have to add a little red tongue to it. Once all the painting's done and I've got the pot the way I like it, I add a candle safe varnish. And I will add 2 layers of this candle safe varnish in the inside just to make sure that the candle won't affect the pot or anything else, and obviously I'll add it on the outside as well. But then I am melting the candle and I've added some green dye to it and scented it lavender before adding it to the pot to set. Once the candle has set, I can trim the wick and get rid of the wick holder. And it basically means that the candle is finished. So it's got a lime green candle in the centre, and obviously the pot is a frog. I think it just goes so well, and now it's ready to put wherever you want in your house. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching. Bye!